President of the Association. For those of you who don't know me, obviously we're here for the debate of all the sheriff candidates tonight. You're not going to listen to me talk very long, but I wanted to introduce Tara Malik, our guest proctor. She's agreed to be our unbiased third party. She's a former prosecutor for Kootenai County Prosecutor's Office, and she's gone on to bigger and better things and now has her own law firm between her and her husband. So we thank her for coming in and partaking in this for us tonight. I'm going to have Tanner go over the rules real quick. So Tara's going to be asking all the questions. We had a group get together and come up with the list of questions that will be asked, and I have a feeling we're going to run out of time. We're going to go till 6 to 9, and we're going to cut it at 3 hours. So, but I'll let Tanner go over the rules, and then we'll bring the candidates in and get started.
Alrighty, so the rules are going to go like this. We've got 24 questions we're going to try to get through tonight. They're all questions that were submitted by everybody that submitted an email or via word of mouth to us. We went through, skimmed them down, got rid of duplicates, and got our final list. So with those, we had the candidates draw a random number, so they will be sitting in a random order. The first question will go to seat 1, and then go down the line. Second question will go to seat 2, and then go down the line. So everybody will have a chance to answer each question. Primary responses are 1 minute and 15 seconds long, so they're going to be timed to that. They can rebuttal against one another based off of who mentions each other in different questions and responses. Rebuttals are 45 seconds long. They get 2 rebuttals per question towards other candidates, if that makes sense. We'll have a 10-minute break at the end of the first hour and the second hour for the candidates to kind of relax and everybody to get up and use the bathroom. So from 7 o'clock to 7:10 will be our first break, and then 8 o'clock to 8:10 will be our second break. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully everybody will get along and we'll get some questions answered. Anybody have any questions before we go? Perfect. Well, we'll bring them back in a sec.
Ready? Yeah, bring them in.
Getting paid?
If you're having any problems hearing them, everybody else will be worse. So you have to occasionally remind them to basically hold the mic up right up to the base of their chin and speak into the microphone type of thing. So, okay, thank you.
This will make it a little easier.
You can see the time. So if they stop, then we can just move on to the next one.
All right, good evening, candidates. How's everyone tonight?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for being here. We're going to jump right in. We have a limited amount of time and a lot of questions. You all know the rules, so first question is going to Mr. Bauer. Briefly describe your law enforcement experience. I'm sorry. Introductions. I skipped over and skipped right into the questions. You've got 2 minutes for introductions, and Mr. Bauer, you're first.
Thank you. My name is Mike Bauer. I live in Harrison. I've been there 8 years. Prior to that, I lived in Truck Creek, Montana for 9 years. Prior to that, Mammoth Lakes and then Southern California. I retired LA Sheriff. I have credentials from there. I did 33 years. Started when I was 19 and I left service when I was 52. I've done just about every common assignment you might find, custody in that. When I thought about what to do about this particular race, and I looked at what was happening here, after 8 years here and looking at the general politics of it, I thought, you know, I think it'd be good to give everybody here an opportunity to have another choice. LA Sheriff, in my opinion, has changed a lot. I have some problems with it. If I'm elected sheriff, I'll probably put a hiatus, maybe a little delay, and a review on out-of-state candidates coming into Kootenai Sheriff while I examine the backgrounds and some of the other material, because of several incidents that have occurred which will probably be discussed here tonight. And I just want the best for this county, and I appreciate the opportunity to address all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. We very much appreciate this. I very much appreciate it. I'm going to take a little different stance on the introduction, because I'm sure we're going to get to the credentials and all that, guessing by the first question you started with. I just want to cover that if we look back at what's going on in our country the past 10 years, maybe 20 years, the dramatic changes that we're facing, next year is going to be a pivotal year for this country and for this county, with a degradation of things and where things could or may go, with the explosive growth facing Kootenai County, the attrition that we already have, the morale issues we already have. The future of this county is dependent on leaders that have a proven track record in that. And as we go through the night, I'll explain why I'm that guy. Thanks for having me.
Mr. Norris.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Bob Norris. I'm a 30-year veteran of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office and a current member of the Kootenai County Search and Rescue Team. I am the only candidate who has worked, supervised, and managed law enforcement assets in both patrol and custody. My candidacy is focused solely on the concept of leadership. In my opinion, the most valuable asset of a law enforcement agency is the frontline personnel, sworn or professional staff. The most important rank is your first line supervisor or sergeant. As you may or may not know, Travis Cheney and Tad Leach have endorsed me and are actively supporting me to become your next sheriff. My conversations with them have centered on the sheriff's office losing its way since their retirements and need to get its course corrected. I am honored that they believe I am the right person to get this office back in the direction. But it's not just them. I've spoken to many of you and cannot tell you how shocked I am at the sheer number of horror stories you've shared with me. I believe it is wrong to stand by and watch a fine organization and its staff suffer the consequences of poor leadership, especially if you know you can fix those problems. I believe that a leader's job is to create an environment where staff can do their job, want to do their job, and look forward to doing their job. That is not how anyone I've spoken to describes their experiences with the sheriff's office. As your sheriff, uniformity, due process, and just cause will be cornerstones of my administration. I know I can make those changes. I've made those types of changes in my previous units of assignments. And two of your most well-respected undersheriffs, Tad Leach and Travis Cheney, believe I am the right person to make those changes. I appreciate the opportunity you are giving me to discuss my skill sets and experience, as well as describe my vision for bringing a culture of leadership back to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
Ms. Edmondson.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Kim Edmondson, running for Kootenai County Sheriff. I have over 30 years of experience living in this community. This community is extremely important to me. I have been involved in a number of nonprofit organizations and been on boards of them, volunteered countless hours. with all of those different places over the course of 30 years living here. My family lives in this community. My mother is here. She moved here after my father passed away. My brother is here with his family. My adult son and my 10-year-old granddaughter, my mother-in-law, and my husband and I. My husband and I have a ranch up in the Garwood area, and we just love this community very much. Kootenai County is in my heart and always has been. I've been with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office since February 3rd, 1992, so I'm coming up on a 28th year anniversary, and I'm really excited about that. Over the course of the years, I've moved throughout the organization. I've had a different experience in the jail, patrol, detectives division. Now I've started the professional standards division and have investigations back under my belt. And so with that has come a lot of opportunity to have leadership experience, management experience within the organization, and at all of those different levels and opportunities, you know, the organization has been in my heart. So the reason I'm running are because the community is so important to me. Community safety is important to me, especially with all my family living here. But my compassion for the community and my compassion for the people in our organization are very important to me. So those are the basic reasons. My platform, hopefully we have more opportunity to be able to talk about those things, but they'll focus on talent, technology, and teamwork. And I hope to be able to expand on that as we have time. So thank you very much.
Mr. Green.
I'm John Green. I'm currently the sitting state representative for District 2, Seat B. Some of you are my constituents. This is my district here. I've run for this office twice before. There's probably more public information available on me, including videos and statement position than any of the other candidates up here. I am, as you know, many of you know, I'm a lawyer, currently practicing. Since the last election, I wanted to just mention what's changed. I've been married now 41 years. I have 10 grandchildren. 3 of my 4 children are now living in Kootenai County. We're hoping to get the 4th one up here soon. And you came here to hear questions while we're being put on the spot, so let's get to it.
Mr. Grimm.
Good evening. My name is John Grimm. My wife and I live here in Hayden. I grew up in Orange County, California, and I was married to my first wife for 22.5 years. We have 4 children. And 15 years ago, we moved our family and business here to North Idaho because we found a better place to raise our children. My kids went to Hayden Meadows, Charter, Canfield, and Coeur d'Alene High School. I've been married to 7 years, 3.5 months with my beautiful wife, Sarah. She's here tonight. She's present with my son, Adam, and my stepson, Ryan. And both my stepchildren attend Lake City High School. I'm a tool and knife maker by trade and a successful business owner for the past 26 years. We manufacture small, close-tolerance products for the medical, aerospace, and defense industries. Additionally, I was a reserve deputy here in Idaho for a short time. I'm 54 years old and I'm in excellent physical health. I'm running for sheriff for 3 reasons. Number 1, I'm involved in my community and I'm at a time in my life where I can afford to perform this vital act of public service. 2, problems plaguing the department for years are not being solved from within. And 3, the issues and problems facing the sheriff's office are not unique to law enforcement and won't necessarily be solved by the person that has the most law enforcement experience, the best detective, or who's the greatest cop. You need a strong leader, and he must be honest, and he must be well-liked in the community. He must have lived here long enough to understand the differences between the sub-communities that make up this county. He must have a commanding presence and be articulate, as he is the face of law enforcement in the sheriff's office. He needs to be credible with the taxpayers and the county commission with a solid history of financial management. And he's got to be that fresh blood that you were looking for with successful management experience with actual employees. And finally, he must have deep roots here with the desire to make an impact on his community. I have a proven track record of all of these traits that predates this race. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now, since I've previewed that first question, you all have had some time to think about it. First question is to Mr. Bauer. If you could briefly describe your law enforcement experience and why you believe you are qualified to be sheriff.
Is this on? Okay. I started when I was 19 in the Hall of Justice Jail as a corrections officer, so I've done detention. I was first in my class in '71 to go to patrol. I was promoted to sergeant when I was 25. I've been in charge of other people's performance virtually the rest of my career, which was another 25 years. I was the captain of Special Enforcement Bureau for 3 years. That was a joint command with the Aero Bureau. I've done probably over 300 call-outs in that 3-year period. I ran search and rescue, one of Bob's specialties, for 3 years with Air 5 Air Rescue and a paramedic program. I was an Emergency Medical Services Commissioner for LA County and the chairman of the LA County Emergency Medical Services Commission for the last year I was on the job. From there I went to Major Crimes Bureau where I did detective work, organized crime, vice, and in that particular assignment we had a change of sheriff. That particular sheriff, Lee Baca, has been sentenced to federal prison, and he's fighting that at this time. That has changed my attitude towards the organization about the time I left.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. Mr. Whitehead, same question. Describe your law enforcement experience and why you believe you're qualified to be sheriff.
My law enforcement experience started right after high school in the Army as a military policeman. From there, I ended up in Texas, worked for a suburb of Houston for 5.5 years as a policeman and a field trainer. From there, I moved to Austin to the Travis County Sheriff's Office, where I spent the next 25 years, promoted up through the rank of captain. I've worked every aspect of the agency, whether it's motorcycles, cars, horses, boats, been in helicopters, been a SWAT commander, a major crimes commander, as a employee or as an association member and president, rewrote an $80 million pay scale to stop the attrition in Travis County. There's no part of the Sheriff's Office I haven't worked or led.
Thank you. Mr. Norris.
My name is Bob Norris. My career spans from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office. I spent, my last unit assignment was Chief of Law Enforcement Services for 3 contract cities in Los Angeles County. Before that, I worked at a sheriff's station as a lieutenant. And before that, I did the gambit of sergeant, working counterterrorism, dope, gangs, special impact teams, crime impact teams. Before that, I was a deputy in our custody division. When I got promoted to sergeant, I went back to our custody division, back to our jail operations. I have been a director of 2 commands on my community-based policing services and also chief of law enforcement services for those 3 contract cities.
Ms. Edmondson.
Starting in 1992 as a detention deputy, I worked the floor for a year and then went to the labor program for a year. I was a jail training officer for a few years after that, promoted to detention sergeant. I worked as a detention sergeant for a couple of years and then became an administrative sergeant during the 2000 expansion that we had in 1999. It started and helped to expand the what would be the second expansion on the jail. In 2003, I transferred over to patrol. I went to the patrol academy, completed my FTO training, and then was out on the road for a time before I was promoted to lieutenant in 2004, put in charge of detectives at that time, and I was there for 5 years. During that time, I investigated or led the investigative branch in the incident command system of the Grony family murders and kidnapping. And in 2009, I went back to the jail as a services division commander, and then I went to the National Academy, FBI National Academy in 2010. And when I returned in 2011,
You can go ahead and finish that last
okay, then I ended up promoting to captain and then appointed to major in the jail, and have since come back over to the custody or to the operations side as the professional standards and detective division commander.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
I started my law enforcement career when I went to the police academy at age 18, just out of high school. I was commissioned with the San Diego College Police Department when I was 19. I worked there a year. Went to work for the Sheriff's Department in Houston after that, and then worked for a year for a small municipal department as a detective. When I was at the Sheriff's Department, I worked for every aspect of the department. I worked in jail, patrol. I was promoted to detective, worked investigations, was promoted to sergeant, also worked the jail and patrol. I was president of the Harris County Deputy Sheriff's Association, which at that time was the largest law enforcement organization in the state, and received an award for them for having the most productive year in association history. In 1987, I went to work for the Deputy Sheriff's Association of Texas, which was at that time the largest law enforcement association in the state of Texas, back and forth with an organization called CLEAT. They had a few more members in it a couple times. And then I've been a lawyer since then, and every day of my career as a lawyer has had issues involved that have a direct impact on law enforcement.
Mr. Grimm.
Thank you. Well, this will be really short because my experience is very limited in law enforcement. I was a reserve deputy up in Bonner County for less than 6 months. Because of some events that happened in my life, I had to abandon that pursuit as a volunteer career. But I want to emphasize the fact that the problems that face the Sheriff's Office are problems that are faced by every organization of similar nature: morale, efficiency, and organization. I'm very proud of the fact that as a businessman, I have been successful since day one. I have long-term employees, and even though we've pared down a little bit since we moved to Idaho, before that we were a pretty big operation. Managed, one time we had 33 people. And I'm also proud of the fact that I've never missed a payroll, never missed a payroll deposit. We are always current on everything. I'm a stickler about things. Thank you. And I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Each candidate, as you know, has 2 rebuttals per question. Are there any rebuttals at this time? All right, moving on. Mr. Whitehead, you have the second question. What sets you apart from the other candidates running for sheriff?
My experience is 40 plus years. During that same time, and during that 40 plus years, I've started at the line. In Baytown, you did patrol and detention. We had our own jail and shipped them to Harris County. Promoting up through the rank of captain, I've led every aspect. At the same time, as a sergeant, being involved in the association, first as a member and then working my way up to president. I was also a regional director for CLEAT that Mr. Green mentioned. During that time as a sergeant, also taking the battle as in the association, fighting for pay and stopping attrition because we were a training agency. Working with neighborhood groups and 5 commissioners instead of 3 to solve our attrition issues. When I promoted to lieutenant in '97, I was president of the association at the time, and I was going to resign because now I was one of them, and they wouldn't let me. From then I became major crime commander. I've been on dozens, if not hundreds, of homicide scenes, officer-involved scenes. I've been a SWAT commander. I've had $80 million budgets. It's my experience sets me apart, as well as being a business owner.
Mr. Norris, same question to you.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What sets you apart from the other candidates running for sheriff?
What sets me apart from the other candidates? I am the only candidate who has worked, supervised, and managed both law enforcement assets in 2 of the major functions of this sheriff's office: the jail operations and patrol division. Period. No other candidate up here can say that. You know what, and I've worked for some leaders, and I've worked for some managers. And it's time that we stop making managers, and it's time that we start promoting and molding our men and women to be leaders of this organization. What sets me apart is I am the only candidate that has worked all the way up in both sides of this house.
Thank you. Ms. Edmondson, same question. What sets you apart from the other candidates running for sheriff?
I am the only candidate that has been a member of this community for as long as I have, for over 30 years, and member of the organization for nearly 28. The only candidate here that can say they've acted as both the undersheriff and the sheriff of Kootenai County in the absence of people in those positions. I've also been a member of the Kootenai County Deputy Sheriff's Association for over 25 years. I, back in the day, walked with a picket sign with my son at about 3 years old, trying to work for extra pay for members of the association as a team, and that's how we were structured. And that was a really important opportunity for me to take. And definitely, I guess I'll just wrap it up saying that, I'm the only one that can say I have that experience with the association and knowing how hard it is to fight for the things that we believe in, that we know we need to make our organization better. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
I have, I'm the only candidate that has a proven track record as a state legislator on voting on issues and keeping campaign promises that I made when I was campaigning. My ideology with regard to government is to favor smaller government, lower taxes, and individual responsibility. And my voting record exemplifies that, my commitment to that position. I'm also the only candidate that has a proven track record of standing up to oppressive government officials when they violate the rights of citizens, and that includes the government. And I've done that at great expense to myself, both personal and monetary. I think that any of the candidates at this table could be competent to perform the duties of sheriff. Probably most of the people in this room could be competent to perform the duties of sheriff. But commitment to principle and to prove how you will act in a particular situation takes some track record. I have that track record.
Thank you. Mr. Grimm?
The difference is I bring a new perspective truly as an outsider to the sheriff's office. When you think about there are 3,000 some odd sheriffs in the United States, you can count on one hand the number of exemplary sheriffs that there are. And I think this is due in large part because we follow the same model over and over again. And somebody that might work their way up through the organization might be an outstanding lawman. But what I'm hearing a lot of tonight about experiences, that ties in with micromanagement. And that's an awful way to run an organization. I know, and I have personal experience with the fact that the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is staffed with capable men and women, well prepared to perform their jobs. And the problem that faces a sheriff's office are not law enforcement related. They are managerial in nature. And that's what a good sheriff does. He's an excellent manager. Another thing is I currently manage a multi-million-dollar budget. The difference is it's my money that I manage, and every dollar that I make a mistake on affects me at the end of the year. So I'm very careful with money, and I will be credible with dealing with the sheriff's budget with the county commission.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer, same question to you. What sets you apart from the other candidates running for sheriff?
What sets me apart first is that I'm an unaffiliated candidate and I'm not running against any of these other candidates in the Republican primary, which means none of you can vote for me next May. You have to vote for me next November if I stay in the race. It's been my position to this association and to others that I've talked to who know about this Kootenai Sheriff organization that it's my preference that an insider run this department, not an outsider, not somebody from out of town. Now, if that's not available, well then let's pick the next best candidate. My goal and why I am different is that I choose somebody from inside the organization as an undersheriff, and I choose then somebody to train and get the experience they need to run the department from inside. And that, in my opinion, along with my other law enforcement experience, which is pretty extensive, is what sets me apart.
Thank you. We have some time for rebuttals. I believe Mr. Whitehead had a rebuttal. Anybody else who wanted to rebut at this time? All right, Mr. Whitehead, go ahead.
As far as track records, and people claiming to have the only one, I have a successful, proven track record of success in leading a law enforcement agency, the Sheriff's Office. In that track record, I've received 3 leadership awards, 2 of those from the office, and 1 of those state regional award from the state organization I was affiliated with at the time. As far as working both sides or leading both sides of the house, there's not only one candidate that's done that. I've led both sides of the house. My correction side or detention side of the house is more affiliated with large-scale events like similar to the Ironman here, but Aquapalooza or the Republic of Texas Motorcycle Rally having remote booking, classification, and transportation facilities. As far as standing up, I went against my own sheriff as an association president to get our agency a pay raise and won.
Mr. Norris, I believe you had a rebuttal as well.
I have a rebuttal. Do I say who the rebuttal is to?
You can.
So my rebuttal is to Kim Edmondson. Kim, you have stated publicly that you do not support or agree with how you got fast-tracked with your promotion to lieutenant, but it didn't sway your decision to accept it. My question is, why should the Deputy Sheriff's Association and its member, who are not as fortunate as you, reward you with their endorsement?
I think you misunderstood what you heard in public. I didn't disagree with being fast-tracked in any means. What I disagreed with was, what I had said at one of the meetings where you heard that, was that the means by which I was transferred as a sergeant from detention to patrol for training didn't work well for the agency for a number of reasons. I was successful in the process of having done that, but looking back on how that might work in the future, I don't agree with how it held up sergeants through the training program that had to train me during that time. So it kind of took a draw away from those sergeants that could have been doing other things. They also held a position open for me as a sergeant in the jail, so the jail had to function without that one position during that time. So just looking back on how that went along for the agency, which is definitely something to be concerned about for the future, I didn't agree with the way that went.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Please.
To me, the definition of rebuttal is rebutting something that was said in reference to the question that was asked the first time, not asking a new question. Which way can we expect to go?
We're going to limit it to true rebuttals, so cross questions among candidates, we're not going to let now, because that was on the record, we let it go on. But for the future, these are true rebuttals, so if someone invokes your experience or your name or your answer in their response, you have the opportunity to rebut. Is everybody clear on that? Okay. All right. So let's move on to our third question, and we're going to start with Mr. Norris. Mr. Norris, if you are elected, what do you believe the different roles will be for the sheriff and the undersheriff?
Well, okay, can you hear me now? What do I believe the different roles will be for the sheriff and the undersheriff?
That's correct.
Well, I believe that the sheriff will set a vision for leadership, and he or she will pick an undersheriff who shares that same philosophy of leadership. Maybe different ideas, but the same philosophy of leadership. Part of that leadership is that the men and women of this organization on the line level are your most valuable assets in this organization, period, hands down. In addition to that, we need to give you the tools necessary for you to complete your job. That's another big part of leadership from the sheriff and the undersheriff.
Ms. Edmondson, the same question to you.
I don't see necessarily the undersheriff's duties being any different. They have the general responsibility of the day-to-day operations of the entire organization, and so I would see that continuing on. As far as any differences, I couldn't see that there would be any more than what an undersheriff currently does, as long as that's continued to be done with a lot of passion for all of the different areas of our organization, because we're not just patrol. It's not just a patrol function. There's driver's license, there's records, there's the jail, and there's civil. There are all these different people that are involved, volunteers that are involved that we have to pay attention to. So it's more than just a patrol focus. As far as the sheriff's differences in how things will go when I'm sheriff, I intend to engage the community a lot more. I intend to communicate what's going on in the sheriff's agency for the community to know, because I know I run into a lot of people that don't even know that there are 2 unfinished pods in the jail, 108 beds that are unfinished. They think that just because we had a jail expansion, that jail's complete. But if I were out there saying that to the community so that the voters know, those are the people who can put the right pressure on the folks to get that done. Thank you.
Mr. Green, same question.
As we know, the primary duty of the Sheriff's Office is to protect the life, liberty, and property of the citizens in Kootenai County, or anybody that happens to be within the jurisdictional boundaries of Kootenai County. The Sheriff's job is to set policy. The Undersheriff's job, in my view, is to provide administration of that policy. Why I think that, and hopefully my Undersheriff will come from within the ranks of the department, so that they know the department. Now, I take a little different look at the role of the Sheriff. My primary concern as Sheriff is the health, safety, and welfare of the men and women that work for that department, because without their benefit, their welfare first in mind, they can't perform those duties of protecting life, liberty, and property of the citizens. So traditionally, I don't know now within the rank and file of the department how it works on a day-to-day basis. I have a lot of experience in that area with other departments, and so my first priority will be to get into the department, see how everything runs, what the relationships are like, what the management staff is like, picking an undersheriff that can handle the administrative responsibilities, which includes running the day-to-day operations.
Mr. Grimm.
Thank you. The sheriff sets the tone and the direction of the department, and the undersheriff handles the day-to-day operations. The thing that I'm going to do different, much like what Captain Edmondson said, is I'm going to be, and I released a video speaking about this, a very visible sheriff. And this is what we've been lacking, and this is nothing against Ben. I like Ben as a person, but I'm more of a gregarious personality, and I like getting out, and this is a just cause to go out and fight for. What we need is somebody out there continually to build the relationship between the sheriff's office and the public. A number of years ago, public relations between law enforcement and the citizens of the country weren't all that great. They've been improving ever since, but we can build upon that. The other thing I'm going to do is start with recruitment, and recruitment early, so that we can sell young people of Kootenai County on a career in law enforcement. And by talking to their parents and talking to the other constituents, I think we can manage that.
Thank you. Mr. Bauer, the same question to you. If you're elected, what do you believe the different roles will be for the sheriff and the undersheriff?
If I'm elected next November, my first assignment for the undersheriff will be to accept a salary $1 less than mine. The excess money from that will go into the operation and be pushed down in. We have a salary inversion, and so eventually my goal would be to have all of the command staff at least the sheriff's salary, and that the lower parts of the department the salary would come up. The undersheriff should not be the one who goes to executive session at the BOCC. The BOCC runs this department, makes the sheriff be a manager because they handle all the money and they handle any changes to funding and inside structure. That needs to be addressed, and that's going to be my job in the very beginning. But the undersheriff, yes, ordinarily would be an administrative person. For the first short period of time, I'm going to have to be right there with him.
Mr. Whitehead.
Or her.
The sheriff's job is to set the vision and the mission. The chief deputy is the next person in charge to carry that out. However, as a sheriff, I'd be a very hands-on sheriff, and that chief deputy has to have a like mind. And my mind is any day that the employee at any level doesn't feel like they're the #1 asset in the agency, then we're doing our job wrong. It is all about relationship, whether it's in the department or without. Part of my track record is engaging the community, and the night I finally got our commissioners to change our pay and slam the door on attrition, we were in a room about this size, and from my work going to neighborhood group to neighborhood group, it was standing room only, and people lined up for 2 blocks down the street to speak on our behalf. The people that came to speak on their behalf changed to talk about the deputy's pay when they got there.
All right. Moving on to the 4th question. Ms. Edmondson, we're going to start with you. The undersheriff position is just as important as the sheriff's to lead the Kootenai County Sheriff's Agency. Please describe the ideal qualities of an undersheriff, such as years of experience in law enforcement, employee management experience, educational degree, budget finance experience, and describe the job description your undersheriff would fill.
Well, oops, I have to speak loudly about this. The undersheriff is, as I said earlier, the day-to-day manager of the organization, the entire organization. But as I also said earlier, I have a limited experience in patrol, and so what I want to make sure I get when I select an undersheriff, I want to have a person that has a good experience in patrol. I don't know number of years what that's going to look like, but they need to have a good understanding of the patrol function. I also want them to be able to be very objective, though, and open-minded, and be able to look broadly at the organization, hovering over all of the responsibilities that we have in the agency, because again, as I said, it's not just about patrol, it is also about the jail, it's about civilian staff, and all of the other things that we need to accomplish. So that person needs to be very objective. They need to have a lot of passion for our people. The vision that I have for the organization is about, as I said earlier, talent, technology, and teamwork, and that talent piece of it is about the people in our organization and how we can start working towards the future and what we need to do with setting the tone for who's going to be taking the place for the rest of us as we retire. So the future of the organization is really going to be based on training, kind of moving people forward into positions and helping them to grow so that we can have a good, strong organization in the future.
Mr. Green, the same question to you. Please describe the ideal qualities of an undersheriff, such as years of experience in law enforcement, employee management experience, educational degree, budget finance experience, and describe the job description your undersheriff would fill.
I don't think that that there are any fixed standards for any of those criteria. First and foremost, I would want an undersheriff that has a history and reputation for honoring his or her oath and performing their job, their duties as a deputy sheriff with distinction. As far as specific qualifications, that depends on the pool of candidates that we would have within the department. To try to exclude somebody based on education or experience in a particular field, I think we might overlook other good candidates. So I won't set any fixed standards for that ahead of time. As far as the ideal candidate, again, they have to be a deputy that shows honesty, integrity, and duty and honor to their oath, first and foremost.
Mr. Grimm.
I agree with Mr. Green in refraining from setting any absolute minimums. However, I have been very clear, and I try to be very descriptive when I post things on my website so that there are no questions, and these are things that I can be held accountable to at a future date. So I'm going to tell you some of the things I've already set out and outlined what my requirements for your undersheriff will be. Long-time sworn law enforcement professional, currently certified or qualified to obtain Idaho Post certification. He needs to be an Idaho lawman. Things are different here. The way I had it described to me one time, it's better not to work in the same county that you live in if you shop at Walmart, things like that. He needs to be well respected in the law enforcement community. Was that for me? He has to be a superb orator with an affable an affable personality, because he's your guy. He's the guy that you're going to go to. A keen sense of humor. Why is that important? It's a stressful job, and humor is a mechanism that we use as human beings to deal with that. Proficient troubleshooter, and lives according to the standards of servant leadership, and most importantly has the full support of their spouse and shares my passion for perfection and hard work.
All right, Mr. Bauer, you're up next. Please describe the ideal qualities of an undersheriff, such as years of experience in law enforcement, employee management experience, educational degree, budget finance experience, and describe the job description your undersheriff would fill.
My first preference is somebody from inside the organization who knows the organization and has a history and understands its heritage and its cultures. I've offered the job to 2 individuals. Well, I've offered the job to 1. If that person turns it down, I've told the Deputy Sheriff's Association here who they are. They know who they are. And if both of those individuals were to decline the position, I would begin an interview process with everybody in the department. I would find the smartest person, the most hardworking, smartest person I could to take that job. Peter Pitches, when he took over LA County Sheriff's Department, picked a male secretary in the Homicide Bureau who transcribed audio recordings in homicide cases as his undersheriff. And it was devastating to the hovering crowd that was trying to get that job, but that was one of the finest undersheriffs that was there. It was smart and hardworking and dedicated. So my choice is somebody inside.
Mr. Whitehead.
I have a very short list of people qualified for that position, and if you've been following me on social media, you know one of them's in the room. That has extensive law enforcement experience with more than one agency. That way they're not siloed into one way of thinking. They've seen it done different ways. A extensive training background, a business background, a heart for the county and for the agency, one that is like-minded with me in my leadership style and leadership thoughts, but most importantly, one that's not afraid to challenge me, to ask me a question or debate a topic with me on a direction or a policy or something. Because just because I'm the sheriff doesn't mean I have all the answers and I'm not above reproach. And the chief deputy has to have that latitude and freedom and security to be able to say, let's think about this a minute. That's the kind of guy I need.
Test. So I have picked my undersheriff. It's a clone of Tad Leach and Travis Cheney. I don't know who that person is going to be, but that person is going to have, number one, is going to have leadership. Leadership is absolutely imperative. I need somebody who can motivate, who can put objectives in front of people, to want them to go out there and do the job that we're supposed to do, preventing crime, taking care of the people, taking care of the inmates in the jail. It's really very important that I focus on leadership. I don't have any prerequisites as far as how much time in patrol, how much time in custody. I don't have that. But they will have a breadth of knowledge in many aspects of a law enforcement agency.
All right. Mr. Green, next question is to you. Who in the agency do you believe fits your ideal qualities for an undersheriff?
I won't know that. I won't be able to know that until I meet all of them. And there's an awful lot of them that I haven't met. I've met plenty of good candidates that have already departed from the department for one reason or another. I'm sure there's plenty more that are there that would like to have a chance to be considered for that position that could serve honorably and competently in that position. But like I said, until I meet them all, I can't know. And I will meet them all within a very short time of winning the primary.
Mr. Grimm.
I too am at a disadvantage because I don't know many of the members of the department. However, I have met a few quality individuals that may be able to fill that role, and well, I'll have to see when I get there. However, I do need to make one thing perfectly clear. I have 4 candidates in mind that fit the description I have outlined for you, and 3 of them are very, very strong candidates that any one of them you'll be very, very pleased with.
Mr. Bauer, same question to you. Who in the agency do you believe would fit these qualities?
Would you repeat that?
Sure. Who in the agency do you believe would fit your ideal qualities for an undersheriff?
Currently working,
Yes.
Kim Edmondson, without question, would be a wonderful undersheriff for me if she would accept the job. And I suppose after the Republican primary, well, I would hope she would come to me and ask me to step down so she could be the sheriff, which is a possibility. But she is on my list. She is my second choice. My first choice is Dan Sumas, if he will settle his lawsuit, if he will come to terms and restore himself and reinstate himself. I'm upset that he filed the lawsuit, but he has the experience and he has the background and the knowledge to be a great undersheriff. Short of that, I don't know. It's going to be somebody in this room. So I'll just have to let it go at that.
Mr. Whitehead.
My list doesn't include anybody on the agency currently because, one, I don't know anybody that well, and I've intentionally stayed away from contacting employees in the agency to not cause any undue pressure or fear of reprisals for collaborating with candidates outside the agency. Excluding the agency, my person is picked because your second in command, your undersheriff or chief deputy, has to be one that's like-minded and has the same mission and vision and leadership styles as you, and basically the person that's going to take the bullet for you. And I think that relationship has to be established a long time before, between May and January.
Mr. Norris.
Part of my platform is to go to each unit of assignment in this organization and talk to the men and women on the line without sergeants, lieutenants, or captains present. And I want to know from them how that we can make working conditions and efficiency a staple of the organization. I have not selected an undersheriff. I don't think it would be in the best interest to select an undersheriff without evaluating the organization first. I obviously want somebody who challenges me. I want somebody who has the same philosophy but with different ideas. I have not chosen an undersheriff, nor will I until I have an opportunity to assess the organization.
Ms. Edmondson.
I thought you were going to ask the question again.
I'm happy to. Who in the agency do you believe fits the ideal qualities of undersheriff?
So I do have the advantage of working there and knowing the people in our organization, and I could name a number of people who have qualities to be the undersheriff. Parts of different people, if I could make the perfect undersheriff, there are numbers of people I would take qualities from. That makes it a little bit difficult to try to find that right person that I want to have. I don't want to throw names out there at this point because I haven't made a selection either. And it wouldn't be fair to put those names out there in this setting without having talked to the person first or people in that situation. But, you know, I really see a lot of talent in our organization, and that's what I'm talking about as far as, you know, being able to bring people up to speed. We need to know what their, you know, what their career goals are and work towards developing people, because everyone that's there right now, they're the future of the organization. And so I think a number of people could fit that. One person who has been a sheriff is Gerald Wallace, so I suppose he would be a good fit for an undersheriff as well. But I haven't talked to him about that. So.
All right, we'll do one more question and then we'll go to a break. Mr. Grimm, this one is for you. Have you reviewed or requested a copy of the Sheriff's Office Policy Manual?
Yes, I have. It arrived today.
Right. Mr. Bauer?
Yes, I have it downloaded on my computer. I have the county personnel policy, which is an at-will employee policy, but it references a special sheriff's department provision that's in there for some sort of modification to at-will. And I assume I have more time here. Is that correct?
You do, yes.
Well, thank you. The at-will policy is something that I just find just totally bewildering to me, that you could have at-will employees and no civil service. It's just an anachronism in Idaho, and someday some union organizer is going to come in here and change that. At-will may be useful under certain circumstances, but under most circumstances I don't think it protects the employees.
Mr. Whitehead?
That request is on an email setting in queue with some other open records requests I have pending that I haven't sent in yet. So not yet. Along the lines of what Mike said, as far as at-will versus just cause, regardless of whether they're civil service or any contracts, everybody that works for me works for just cause. There is no, you didn't part your hair right today, so you're out of here, or whatever reason, you have somebody else. You've got careers, you've got families, you've got mortgages. It's just cause, from the chief deputy to the bottom. It's just cause.
Mr. Norris?
I have received several sections of the policy and procedure manual, but I don't believe I have received the full policy and procedure manual.
Ms. Edmondson?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes, seen a lot of different versions of it over the years, and I've been working on redlining it with my own suggestions that I'd like to make changes to it. With regard to the policy about termination, I helped get civil service passed in Houston, Texas for the Sheriff's Department. And I'll go out on a limb here and say I think it would be perfectly appropriate for all law enforcement in the state of Idaho, except maybe small, very small departments, to have a civil service program where the officers and deputies could be protected from retaliation based on politics.
All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break now, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you.